Welcome back to ParaGhoul Paranormal Discoveries from the Dark. I'm your host, Katie Culpa, and today we're diving into the shadows of Saskatchewan's history to uncover a true crime mystery that has captivated our guests' attention. Joining us on this eerie journey into the past is Melanie Cole, a true crime researcher and writer who delves deep into Saskatchewan's past to shed light on forgotten tales of intrigue and suspense. With a passion for uncovering untold stories, Melanie is here to share insights into a chilling mystery that still haunts the prairies to this day. Before we dive into the mysterious true crime case that she brought to share with us today, let's learn more about Melanie and her journey into the world of Saskatchewan's true crime history and storytelling. All right, can you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a bit about what inspired you to explore Saskatchewan's history for hidden mysteries and true crime?
Okay, so my name is Melanie Cole, and this all started during the pandemic, as most things do. I was researching things to write on my blog, and of course, I was thinking of trying to find fascinating topics, things that interest me. And while I don't personally believe in ghosts, I'm definitely fascinated by the idea and the possibility of them.
Hmm.
And so on a whim, I just started Googling most haunted places in Saskatchewan because I thought, surely if a place is haunted, there has to be a good story there. Because
Good
in
point.
my mind, from my limited view on ghosts, a haunting can't happen accidentally. Ghosts don't just show up. If I'm going to suspend disbelief and pretend that to myself that ghosts are real, there has to be a reason they're there. So I started Googling, and it was really disappointing because a lot of them are just like, no, it's just haunted because it's old. So it's
Oh,
haunted. And I was like, well, that's my logical brain won't accept it. So I'm Googling and I'm reading articles. And I happened upon this story about the Kerrobert Courthouse that they believed it was haunted. A lot of people who go there experience weird sensations. They hear whispers, they hear footsteps. They just get a general sense of unease when they're in the main building in near the staircase. They would always hear people around the staircase. And the reason that the people who work at the Kerrobert Courthouse thought maybe it was haunted was because there was a skull that was kept in an evidence locker in the basement for a murder trial. And the skull was kept there until I believe 1996. But that was their reason, was that the skull of this murder victim was kept in the building, and that was who was haunting the building, or a
oh,
reason for the haunting. And so that was really intriguing to me because I love true crime. I've loved true crime since I was way too young to be watching true crime, but was watching it anyway. Um, the kind of thing,
yep.
comes up on late night TV and I was unsupervised. So of course I started watching it. Um, and so immediately my true crime brain goes, who is murdered? Why? Were they caught? What happened? I have to know all the details. And so their thing was that it was a murder from 1930 and that it was defended by John Diefenbaker. So I was like, okay, I've got a few facts, started Googling. But the only murder trial I could find that happened in the Kerrobert Courthouse in 1930 was two farmers got into a fight, and the other farmer had stabbed him, and he had died a few days later. So there was no mystery. They knew exactly who had stabbed him, and I'm like, and they wouldn't keep a skull for that he was stabbed in the torso.
Yep.
That's very weird. And so and it wasn't defended by John Diefenbaker either. And so I'm looking at it, as far as I could tell, no cases were defended by John Diefenbaker in that courthouse anywhere near that time. But I was like, okay, but let's look at just cases with John Diefenbaker. And so I was looking at that and still like nothing lined up, couldn't find anything. But it got me down this hole of starting to look at all these murders that had happened in my backyard because of course, as a true crime aficionado, I'm hearing about cases in the States or in big cities or metropolitan areas.
Yep.
But as it turns out, we have a very rich history of murder in our province, especially in the 1930s and the 20s, which was a time of a lot of turmoil and a lot of despair. And so there was a lot of gruesome things happening in our province that just nobody really knows about. And so I started writing about them on my blog, which eventually did lead to me solving the case of whose skull was kept in the Kerrobert Courthouse, which is the story I'm going to tell you today.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Mhm.
Yes, I guess let us know more because yeah, I'm really
Yeah.
curious as to whose skull was it and how
Yes.
did it get there?
Yes. Let's dive in, shall we?
Yeah.
So our story takes us not in Kerrobert. It actually takes us to Beachy, Saskatchewan.
Oh.
So yeah. So nowhere near Kerrobert. It was in Beachy, Saskatchewan. And what happened was on December 10th, 1930, there was a show that was held in the town hall. And the show was for someone named Professor Henry Gladstone, who was a self-described mind reader and water diviner. He was a former vaudevillian performer, and on vaudeville, he had the stage name of Professor Memoria, the mental marvel.
Oh.
Yeah, so he was in Beachy performing. Everyone was very excited. It's the middle of December. Everyone's bored. It's cold. So a great big turnout comes to this hall. And Professor Henry Gladstone is his own kind of interesting character. He told reporters that he was born late at night with a caul over his face in Lancashire, England in 1888. He told people he was the seventh son of a seventh son and the direct descendant of the British Prime Minister, William Ewart Gladstone, the former British Prime Minister, William Ewart Gladstone. He was not. William Ewart Gladstone did have a seventh son, but that son didn't have any children. So most
Oh.
likely just a made up, to add to the mystique.
Yeah.
Um, it worked. Everyone was very enthralled. He had a great act. And part of his act was that he would ask members of the audience to just pose questions to him in his mind, and he would answer them without them having to say anything at all. That was his shtick, was ask me a question, don't say anything out loud, and I'll answer you. And so at one point during this part of the performance, he points at a man named William Taylor, and he says, "The man you're thinking of was murdered. There was foul play, and the body will soon be found." So
Ooh.
the crowd the goosebumps go, everyone starts whispering and freaking out. And William Taylor admits he was thinking of a man named James S. McLaughlin, known as Scotty in the district. Scotty had left for supposedly BC in January of 1928, but no one had heard from him since. And he'd left all his livestock, he'd left his belongings. Apparently all he'd taken with him was just like a backpack, kind of a knapsack thing. And that was it. He'd left and no one had heard from him. And everyone was very suspicious, but there was no idea, like no one knew what happened to him. And so according to Henry Gladstone in his performance, the man was murdered and the body would soon be found. So this causes a ruckus. And he turns and he points to another man in the audience, a man named Constable Charles Carey. And he says to him, "And you'll be with me when I find the body." So
Ooh.
now the audience is really in an uproar. One, that he picked out the cop in the audience, but
Yeah.
because now everyone is going wild because there's so many rumors. And so Constable Carey was actually the head of the detachment in Beachy, and he'd been the one looking into Scotty McLaughlin's disappearance. He'd started looking, I think the disappearance kind of became serious in December of 1928, which is when he started his investigation. And he hadn't given up. He'd actually even just that October reached out to one of his superiors to ask for help because he was positive if they sent in another police officer to ask some questions, someone was going to slip up, he was going to get a new piece of evidence, and he was going to break this case. So when this performer calls out this murder in the audience, he's going, "Okay, here's my opportunity. People are shook up. They're going to talk like crazy, and somebody is going to get nervous." So he was very excited. So he called his superiors again to be like, "Hey, can you please send me some help?" But they'd actually already agreed on his request, so they had someone already en route to Beachy. So on December 12th, Detective Corporal William Woods was sent out to help him, and he met him in Lucky Lake and told him about the show and this performance. And Henry Gladstone was actually performing in Lucky Lake that night, so he's like, "Let's go see the show. We'll interview him," which they did, and they decided, we don't have anything to lose here. What if we just invite him to come along on these interviews? Because people are going to think he's psychic. He's going to
Oh.
hear what they're thinking, and maybe someone will shake up and we'll get some truth out of this. They'll get nervous. They're going to slip up because he's there. Gladstone was happy to help. He loved attention and he loved adding to his prestige, right? So he apparently, I couldn't verify, but he had apparently helped with missing persons before, with missing bodies before. The one I could, he said he had found 120 bodies lost to water in Canada. The one I could confirm was he did in 1924 correctly predict where they'd find the missing body of a man named, oh, I can't remember his name, but it was a missing miner in Red Deer River, Alberta.
Oh.
And he predicted he would be found in this swirling eddy downriver from a railway bridge, which he was.
Oh, okay.
And so according to him, he could help find any body lost to water. He could predict it, because what he would do is he would take like a piece of limestone and stick it in bread and throw it in the water and then watch where it went. So more science than psychic, but he would, I'm thinking he used it to follow the current, like it probably went down
And
there.
to understand
down
currents
there.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But he claimed it was psychic, of course, but that's how he found it. So he was confident that McLaughlin's body was going to be found on his old farm. He wanted to go there. He wanted to walk around. He wanted to see if he got anything of what he called his hunches. He wanted to see if he got a hunch while he was on the property, because he was pretty sure. He's like, I think it's going to be on his old farm. So Scotty, Scotty was about in his, I believe, his mid-40s when he disappeared. He didn't really have any family in the district. He had moved there in 1914. And six years later, his wife died. And he had two children, but they were, I don't know if he gave them up or they were taken away, but they became wards of another family that lived in Kerrobert. So he was pretty much on his own. In 1926, he lost his farm to a tax sale. And another resident of the district named Olaf Evian bought his farm and then rented it to him with the idea that he would eventually buy it back.
Oh,
But
okay.
in 1927, Scotty took on a partner named John Schumacher that he invited onto his farm and started farming with him. And John Schumacher still lived out on that farm and still worked that farm. So that was kind of their number one, like, this is probably the last person to see him alive, aka probably our number one suspect.
Right.
So the next day, December 13th, they headed out and they visited a few farms. Nobody was there. Everyone's out. But they ended up on the farm of a man named Ernest, and I'm going to butcher his name here because I can't do names, but his name is Ernest Heigmeister, is how I'm pronouncing it. Heigmeister. You'd think I have a little German roots, but I cannot pronounce names anyway.
Probably better than me.
Exactly. But so they were going there because when Kerry was doing his initial investigation, some people had told him that Ernest had said that John Schumacher had threatened Scotty, had said that he was going to kill him to Ernest.
Oh.
Ernest flat out denied this. He's like, nope, never said that, never told nobody that. But he didn't believe him. He thought maybe he had made those threats. So that was the first place where they actually found someone at home that they could interview. So they started interviewing him. Detective Corporal Woods is talking to him, and he's still just flat out denying it. Nope, never said that. And then at some point, Gladstone just interrupts the interrogation and says, I'll tell you exactly what his words were on that occasion. And can I swear here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. On that occasion, he said, I'll kill that Scotch bitch before he leaves the place. And he's like, and you had pneumonia at the time. Well, Ernest kind of hedges for a while. I'm like, I don't know. And then eventually breaks down. He's like, yeah, he did say that. And I didn't have pneumonia at the time, but I had a really bad cold and I was worried it was pneumonia. That's so weird. Like, yeah, I did think I had pneumonia at this time when he made this threat. So now Detective Corporal Woods and Constable Carey are obviously very surprised at this new prediction. They never knew what anyone had said. They just knew that a threat had been uttered. So they're feeling way more confident now about choosing to include him in their investigation. And so now they decide they're going to head over to what is now called the Schumacher farm, Scotty's old farm.
Right.
So they leave Constable Carey on the road because he was in his uniform. The other two were in plainclothes, and they were like, we're going to go ahead. And they decided to say that they were water diviners. And so because they didn't have any evidence on John yet. They didn't want to spook him, but they wanted to have a look around. So they come to his farm, they go to the door, and they actually ask for the neighbors. They pretend they were lost, they're on the wrong farm. But it was his hired man was home, his brother-in-law was home. And so he explained, hey, we're water diviners. Like, if you want, we can take a look around the property and let you know if we find any water. And he's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. So they start wandering around. And Gladstone kind of leads them to the barn and then away and then to the barn and then away. And then he comes back to the barn. And as they came back to the barn the third time, he starts like sniffing the air really loud. And he's like, something something smells really weird. And the other guy's like, you're crazy. I can't smell anything. My nose is just as good as yours. Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, something strange. And then, so then the hired man walked up. So he shut up and they kind of wandered around and they visit and they go and they leave and they go back and pick up Constable Carey. And as soon as they do, Gladstone tells them, there's been trouble there for Scotty, that he's been killed at the barn and he's either buried somewhere nearby or under the floorboards. He's absolutely adamant he's either been killed in the barn or he's buried under the floorboards in the barn. He's positive. And Woods and Carey, they kind of think, well, like, chances are he probably burned the body if he murdered him, but he's like, no, he's not burned. He's buried. He's nearby. I guarantee it. He's either in that barn or he's somewhere nearby near an old well. So now they go and they do a few more interviews. They check back at the Schumacher farm. John's still not back. But as they're driving back to Beachy, they run into this old Ford truck and it's got no lights on. And Carrie's just like, that's got to be John. It's got to be John heading out. So he turns around and pulls them over. And sure enough, John is in the truck. So they call John out and they ask him if he'll come into Beachy and just answer a few questions. So Detective Corporal Woods tells him, like, hey, I've been brought in because I'm going to make a very thorough investigation into this disappearance. We've already been to your farm twice. We gave it a real good look over, just so you know. And we're going to start our questions with you, because since obviously you're the last person to see him alive. So John, obviously super nervous. He's stuttering. He's kind of, like very visibly nervous, but it's like, yeah, of course, I'll come answer your questions, no problem. So they take him into Beachy, into the detachment office, and they sit him down. And Henry Gladstone just kind of back in the corner, tries to hang back, and Detective Corporal Woods takes over the interrogation. He points out, like, hey, we got someone who says that you said you were going to kill Scotty. We know that you sold a bunch of his stuff after he left. And we know for a fact that you burned a pair of his false teeth. Someone had witnessed him burning a pair of his false teeth. And still nothing. John's not cracking. He's just giving really vague answers, like, no, everything's fine. I don't, no, we're good. He left. And, he told them, like, because Constable Carey had interviewed him when he first went missing. And the story was that Olaf Evian had decided to terminate his lease because Scotty just wasn't getting anything out of the farm. He was losing money. But when John started on the farm, he was able to actually get something out of the property. And so Olaf wanted Scotty gone, and he offered the new lease to John, which Olaf had told him was true. He had sent a letter. He had decided he didn't want Scotty on the land anymore. It was just not working. So John had told Carey, like, this happened. Scotty was obviously pissed. We fought, we got over it. I bought his stuff from him and he left. He talked all the time about going to BC. I think that's where he went, but he didn't tell me. I don't know, but he's gone. And at the time, there's nothing else, like, there's no evidence, nothing to do. So, okay, so things go. So now we're back. We're talking to him. Detective Corporal Woods is interrogating him and he's giving these vague answers. Nothing. He's not willing to talk. He's giving, like, I don't know. He left. I think he's in BC, but I don't know. So then our good friend Gladstone steps up. He jumps up. He snaps his fingers and he goes, the barn. Yes, I've got it. Now, gentlemen, I'm going to tell you what happened out there. And he goes on to say that Scotty went to the barn. A blow was struck and he was killed. It was murder. And that the body was buried. It's still there and someplace near an old well. So now things get real quiet. It's silence. No one says a word. Not Woods, not Carey, not Gladstone, and definitely not John. It is just straight silence. And it's silent for so long that Constable Carey goes and he gets a piece of paper and a pencil and he's like, hey, John, obviously we can't make you tell us anything. But if you want to, here's a pencil and a paper. Again, it's still really quiet. No one says anything. And then John starts to sniffle and then he starts to sob. Oh, no. And he breaks down sobbing and he's just like, oh, my wife and my baby, are they going to hang me? And they're like, I don't know. You have to tell us what happened. If you like, we can't say. We don't know what happened. You know what happened. So ask him, like, do you want to tell us? And he sobbed and he goes, yeah, I'll tell you. I'll tell everything. And so Gladstone leaves and they take his statement. And basically what he says is that he was pretty sure it was morning, that he had been eating breakfast, but Scotty had come home, they said good morning, and then he'd gone out to the barn and he had started what's the word? He started moving the manure pile. He had his pitchfork and he was moving the manure.
Okay.
And Scotty had come into the barn and started just unleashing verbal abuse on him, just calling him down, calling him names, just started fighting with him. And eventually he picked up a shovel and he swung it at John, and John, still holding the pitchfork, had swung and hit him in the head with it. And Scotty dropped and he did not get back up. So John was about, I don't even know if he was 20 at the time that this happened. He would have been 19, 20. So he fully panics. He runs to the house. He's there. He's panicking. He goes back. He shakes Scotty. Nothing. Scotty's just, it's done. It's gone. No one has seen the fight, he says. No one knows that there was like it just. So he dragged him out of the barn down to the manure pile by the old well, covered him in manure, and just left him. Tried not to touch him. He said that he tried not to touch him as much as humanly possible. Like he was truly horrified. Buries him in the manure and then continues to live on the farm because if he leaves, someone might find the body. If he goes, someone might think that he did something. So he was too scared to go and super scared to stay. Like he kept like a string of like hired hands on at the farm. He hated being alone out there. And then he eventually got married and had his wife and baby on the farm with him, but he stayed. And so they read him his rights, they arrest him, take a statement, and they put him in jail cell for the night. And they said he slept like a baby. So I imagine just unburdening himself finally. So the next day on December 14th, they go out to the Schumacher farm and he points out where the manure pile should be under all the snow. So they take him to the house, they leave him in custody with somebody, and then like a whole group of volunteers came out to dig up this body. And of course, like tons of people showed up just to watch,
Oh, I'm
right?
sure.
Because
Yeah.
this is huge news in the community. So they had a bunch of volunteers and like they are pickaxing and shoveling through frozen about 1.5 feet of ice and snow just to get down to the manure pile. And then they had to start picking at the manure and they're not finding anything. So they go back to the house and like, John, like, can you show us where like this, we can't find. He's like, please don't make me go and face those people. Like, please don't make me. So like, all right, we'll keep looking. And at this point, his brother-in-law had come and confronted him and like, is it true? Did you do this thing? And he's like, I mean, I guess it is. And he's like, well, how the hell did you stay here this whole time? And he's like, it was hard.
Oh, yeah.
So they go back out and they're still digging in the manure. Like another 10-20 minutes go by and they come back and they're like, John, like we cannot find this body. You have to come show us. So he comes down and he's like, no, you're in the right spot. Like if you keep digging, you will find him. And then it was not long after that, they're digging, they see a piece of sock start to come out. And then, so now they slow down. Now they're digging with their hands. They're trying to be really careful because especially according to John's story, he had hit him in the head. So Constable Kerrobert was like, we have to be so careful. No injuries can happen to his head. This is all evidence. So they're all scraping and scraping away at this manure and more of his clothes are coming out. And one of the men says like, oh yeah, this is Scotty. Because Scotty wore really very distinctive pants. He had these like weird lace up pants. No one else in the district wore these weird pants. And the way he wore them, he would tuck them, his socks over the
Oh,
cuffs of his
jeez.
pants. So they're like, this is Scotty. We're like, we've got him. So they're digging around the area where the head should be, because they don't want to do any injuries, and eventually like get the manure to give way, and literally the head comes off the body in the manure because it's frozen in the manure. And there's not much left. Like it's pretty much bones, except for on the back of him there was still some flesh in that, and most of the wool clothing was all still there. It was pretty well preserved, but anything cotton had completely disintegrated. So they get him on a big door and they take him carefully into town, and the postmortem examination gets done, and basically it was almost, the left side of his head was almost caved in. Like there were so many breakages. Like the man who did the postmortem, Dr. Lindsay, he said he'd never seen a worse broken skull, except for when he'd seen like shell bombs go off during World War One.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it was a massive injury to his head. Like obviously he was dead immediately,
Yeah.
and he also had a fracture to his first rib on the left side, which, according to John, it was one blow. And his defense attorney eventually said like he was pretty sure like one piece of the pitchfork hit him in the head, and then maybe one of the prongs hit, and that's why that broke. But it was one blow, according to him. But John was 6'4". He was over 200 pounds. Like he was a big boy. He was a big guy. So when he swung, and according to him, he was in fear of his life, it was with a lot of power.
Yep. With
So
everything behind it.
yeah, exactly. Because the thing was, there, Scotty, it kind of depended on who you talked to, because as it came out in the like coroner's inquest and the preliminary hearing, and then eventually in the trial, it kind of went one way or the other with Scotty. Some people said no, he was the nicest guy in the world. Everyone like he never had a temper. He was really nice. And other people were like, well, but when he had a drink in him, he could be quarrelsome. And other people were like, no, he was an asshole. So it kind of depended. And so there was a story of a party that he and John had at their place. And then a fellow there, I don't know what he'd done to offend Scotty, but he started trying to attack him and eventually chased him with a butcher's knife.
Ooh.
And they had to kind of pull him off. And like the fellow he had chased around was pretty scared. He was only, I think it was just like a 17, 18-year-old kid that he chased around with his butcher knife. But when he was questioned about it, they're like, oh, was he joking? He said he was not laughing. And like, he was terrified. So, and at one point, because they had a very fiery relationship from the start, John and Scotty. Scotty had gone into town and run up a bill at the general store and put it under John's name during the summer. And then he tried to do it again, but John had warned the store owner that this was not for him. And so he couldn't do it. And he came home and picked a fight with John and chased him with a cast iron frying pan.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So
An angry guy.
yeah, to be fair to John, it's definitely possible that he had come out in a temper. Maybe he had found the letter that Olaf Evian had sent him to tell him that he was going to be the one to rent the farm and Scotty was going to be gone and he wouldn't have any more to do with it. It's possible that he just heard about it, or it's possible that he was just in a bad mood, or that all of it is made up. Like that's something we can never know for sure.
Yeah.
We only have John's word for it, and Scotty can't speak for himself anymore because he was murdered, obviously. So these are the stories we have to go on. So they did the coroner's inquest, they did a preliminary hearing, and he was committed to stand trial. And trial was until March 24th, 1931, and it was held in Kindersley. And he was represented by a man named Alfred Bentz, not Diefenbaker. That was, I think something must have just got switched along lines in the rumors and that. But Alfred Bentz really tried his best with John, because it was already that they knew that John had killed Scotty. That question, he'd already confessed, they'd found the body, everything was above bar. The big question for the jury at the trial was it self-defense or was it murder?
Yep.
Right? Because John pleaded not guilty. He said that it was self-defense. And the prosecutor, whose last name was Rose, I believe, he was convinced that it was murder. He said, look at, he's huge. Scotty had this farm. He had all this stuff that now, coincidentally, John got when he disappeared. He was able to sell his horses. He had all this furniture. He had farm equipment. And John had said when Scotty left that he had given him $150 for him, as well as a promissory note for another $200 when he came back. Did he? Or was it made up? Was it just, we don't know. When they found the body, John had asked the Constable Carey, he said, did you find anything on the body? And he said, what do you mean? And he said, well, the $150, did he have the $150? And he said, no, we didn't find anything. It would have been well disintegrated by that point. Yeah. So there's no proof of if he had actually given him money or not. So Rose believed that he had killed him for theft, that he wanted his stuff, he wanted his farm, and that Scotty pissed him off and that he killed him. Whereas Bentz was of the opinion like, hey, yeah, he's big, but Scotty has this reputation. He had, I think a couple years ago, he had attacked the same fellow, the Ernest Heigemeister, in town. They'd gotten
Yeah.
into an argument over a pig, and he had attacked him. And Ernest was huge as well. He was 5'8", and he was like 240 pounds. He was a big guy. And Scotty was a little guy, and he had attacked Ernest, and Ernest had gotten the better of him because he was bigger.
Yeah.
And so he's like, this is not unusual. He had picked fights with bigger guys before. And John is he's 20 years old at the time. This guy comes swinging at him with a shovel, and he was in fear of his life. He took one big swing. He was terrified. And then he panicked. And then did he screw up? Yes. He didn't tell anybody. He hid the body. And then, of course, he had to start lying about it.
Yeah.
Had to start making up like, oh, no, he went to BC. He left. He took his bag. And, of course, this started a whole bunch of rumors because, like, Scotty had this special suit that then someone saw another man wearing at the Stampede, and he's like, "Oh no, John told me I could borrow the suit," and like there's all these little things that started adding up over time that just made him look really, really bad. And so Ben's thing was like he made a horrible mistake in covering up this body, and then he had to keep lying to cover it up, and that was his error. But did he kill him out of malice? No, he was terrified. This guy's picking a fight with him. He happened to be holding the pitchfork, and it happened.
Yeah.
So then it goes to the jury, and they had a couple of options. They could find him not guilty. They could convict him of manslaughter, so not like a murder, not as bad, but where he reacted too strongly to what happened, or murder. And so they found him guilty of manslaughter, which was not as good as John was hoping for, but it wasn't going to get hanged. So he got sentenced to 7 years in the Prince Albert Penitentiary. And I don't know what happened to his wife and baby. I think she moved in with her family, and I'm not sure if they stayed together or when he got out, if they parted ways or what happened there, if she wanted to stay with him after this. They were both so young. I feel so bad for them. He was only, according to his marriage certificate, he was only 23 at the time of his trial. Like, he was a baby.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Yeah, so still a lot of life ahead of him after that 7 years. I couldn't find any trace of when he got out or what happened to him. I found on findagrave.com like that he might have moved back home to the States because that was where he's from originally. He had moved up into Canada to start farming when he was in his teenage years. He never finished his schooling, and even his brother at his own trial described him as kind of dumb. And so I personally think that he was just that he was a dumb, ignorant guy and didn't know his own strength, and then did something really stupid afterwards. But again, like, I could see where you can't prove it, but at the same time, they really didn't like each other. They really didn't like each other. So Scotty's head was kept in that Evans locker until 1996, and then it was reunited with his body. And Henry Gladstone, everyone was waiting for him, of course, to testify. He didn't testify at the coroner's inquest or at the preliminary hearing because he got actually quite sick after he helped find the body.
Oh.
Yeah, he ended up in St. Paul's Hospital for weeks after it happened. Apparently, according to him, he got really run down just from like doing this, and he became really ill, ended up in the hospital for weeks. And then when he moved home, he lived in Saskatoon at the time with his wife and their children. Their apartment went on fire, like the building started on fire. He was still in bed rest. He couldn't move. So he actually had to be rescued by a firefighter. So they had to carry him out. He wasn't able to leave the burning building. They lost everything. And so while all this is going on, while they're waiting for the trial, he went to Edmonton to help with a police inquiry there. And then, of course, so he's setting up interviews and shows at the Rialto while he was in Edmonton because he'd lost everything to a fire.
Yeah.
And there's actually a really weird mystery that was happening there at the time where this black retriever named Jip had found a human foot while it was out wandering. And they could not find the rest of the body. And it hadn't been treated with any sort of preservatives or anything. They didn't think it was from like a medical lab or anything like that. And so they asked Henry Gladstone while he was there where he thought the rest of the body was. And he goes, "It's in the water. I'll help you. I'll find it for you." Of course he didn't. As far as like this mystery was never solved, this weird human foot that was just turned up in this neighborhood. that this dog found. But so he stayed in the papers, is what I'm saying. He added like criminal investigator or something like that to his resume after the fact. Like he was like, I can now tell you about criminal psychology kind of thing. Um, so he went on to more success and weird adventures as well. And I believe the judge on his trial actually died really suddenly in 1944 during World War II. He was put in charge of recruitment in Saskatchewan and died very suddenly of a heart attack. And yeah, that was kind of it. I lost the trail on John Schumacher. I wanted to know what became of him, but as far as I know, he served his time. He was released, probably went back to the States, and hopefully had a peaceful life if he was innocent.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully no more big fights in the barns.
Yeah. So that is the story of the haunted skull of the Kerrobert Courthouse and the murder of Scotty McLaughlin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So did they ever say why they think the skull made the place haunted?
No, I think it was kind of a headless horseman situation where Scotty was haunting the courthouse because he wanted his head to
Yeah.
be
Just
reunited
wanted
with
to
his
be
body,
reunited. Yeah, maybe. Hey.
right? And especially to keep it until I think like I'll have to check my notes, but I'm pretty sure. Let me just pull it up here. Um, Pretty sure, yeah, it was 1996 that his skull was reinterred with his remains in BT. So no
Oh,
idea why they kept it so long, but
yeah. Especially, yeah,
but
1996. That's a long time after.
yeah, and apparently it's pretty spooky. They used to have some apartments in the courthouse that where judges would stay while they were in town doing trials and that.
Yeah.
And one time there was a judge who was coming to stay and his wife actually got there before him. And when he came, she was like, "This place is spooky. I don't like it here." And he's like, "Oh, you're crazy." And after a couple nights, they moved out. They were like, "No, we don't want to stay here." And they actually took a different place in town because they said they just could not sleep at night. There would be banging. Someone kept trying the door in their apartment. Like,
Oh, really?
yeah, and then they would open it and nothing would be there. And really, yeah, apparently really spooky stuff happening at the Robert Courthouse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did they say if it like stopped after his skull was removed?
No, they didn't. They didn't.
Oh,
I think that because here's the other thing. Well, that was their main reason for thinking it was haunted. There was also a couple of jail cells in the basement, and so
okay.
their thinking was that maybe one of the prisoners there, or maybe somebody died, and then so
Oh,
that was
maybe.
their kind of the backup reason for why it was haunted. Was that maybe someone had passed away in the prisoners' barracks, or just haunted the place where they met their fate, kind
Yeah.
of.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Hmm.
Spooky.
Yeah.
So when you found
I
out whose head it was, did you like tell them or did they already kind of know? It sounds like they didn't know whose skull it was.
I had reached out to them initially when I was first interested to get more information because I was not finding anything, and no one ever got back to me.
Yeah.
So the reason that I ended up solving the mystery was actually someone at CBC. I was on they had me on the radio there, and she had
Oh,
tracked down a copy of their old history book, which had way more details about the hauntings and like what they experienced and who it was, who it belonged to. And so they did have more information. They knew it was this particular crime.
okay.
So I think it's just more in the telling and the retelling. They didn't
They
put a lot
lost
of
track.
details on their
Yeah.
website too. I imagine they weren't like, so this is the murder, which is what
Yeah.
I would do. I'd be like, here are all the gruesome details because that's the part I'm interested in.
Yeah. Oh. So I guess since then, since that one kind of sparked your interest, do you have any like how many articles have you done so far? Because I know I've read quite a few of them on your website.
Oh boy, that's a good question. I'm not sure. A lot.
Yeah, you found I know I've read quite a few of them. There's a lot that has happened in
Yeah.
Saskatchewan.
I was doing them every week and then things got really busy at work and I had some of the projects I was working on. So then now I do them maybe once a month. Um, because it's such a time commitment to try and research them. So like with this one with the murder of Scotty McLaughlin, I actually did quite a deep dive. I got the coroner's inquest report. I've got the court records. I got the police records. um, and like the transcripts from the preliminary hearing and all
Oh,
the
wow.
newspaper articles. So,
Yeah,
and that it takes a long time to get all
that
those
would. Yeah.
documents, because the provincial archives are very, very good and they're very, very nice and they're very, very helpful, but they're very overwhelmed with requests. So you wait like a good 6 months to get anything.
Yeah.
So it's just not something I can do all the time for any of my other articles. Most of the time, I just go with newspaper accounts, which don't give all the details, but at least let me tell the story.
Yeah.
But with this one, I've done like a much deeper dive. So
Yeah. Have you ever thought about like making stories with any of this information, or because I know you said you like to write, so
I would, I've been playing with the idea of like a fictional historical mystery set in Saskatchewan because there's a someone that comes up a lot in my research. Her name was Dr. Frances McGill, and
okay.
she was the provincial pathologist in the 1930s, which is crazy because she was a woman. Um,
Yeah.
and she did a lot of the postmortems and that on murder victims in Saskatchewan. She comes up a lot, and so I have thought about doing like a historical murder mystery series, kind of from someone inspired by her in Saskatchewan at that time. I think it would be really fun,
That would
but
be a cool, yeah, that would be a cool read for sure.
because she had access, she had a lot of murders to investigate,
Well,
so
yeah.
and
Was
she
there
had a lot of
any,
really crazy stories too. So
yeah, I was gonna say, was there any like really crazy stories in Saskatchewan that you wouldn't have expected to happen in Saskatchewan?
well, I definitely didn't expect there to be one where a mentalist solved a murder. That was crazy.
Yeah, that's
Um,
interesting.
there was actually another one that really surprised me was there was a really vicious axe murder in Saskatoon in 1925 on Christmas night,
Ooh.
and it was never solved. And the main suspect was this man's wife. I don't think she did it from everything I've read. I'm like, no, but it's kind of a little bit of a Lizzie Borden-esque murder where
Oh, really?
you're going, could she have done it? How could she clean up in time? But maybe she could have. And yeah, it's a really twisted, interesting mystery of a story as well, with a lot of like untied loose ends that makes me mad that I'm like, why didn't they investigate this part of it? Because it's so there that one was really interesting as well. And then it's just a lot of really sad domestic abuse stories,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And then there are some weird ones. There is one the Yorkton hammer killing where a guy just apparently just kind of lost the thread and just at the end of the day just went behind his boss and hit him in the back of the head with a hammer, like in front of his wife. He's holding his baby
Oh my
and
goodness.
then went running and was like, no, I didn't do that. I have no idea what you're talking about. But his wife
Oh,
saw him.
wow.
So
Yeah. Yikes.
so there's a lot of really interesting stories for, especially for someone like me who really likes to get into the nitty gritty of the how and the why.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Well, yeah, especially a Lizzie Borden kind of story in Saskatchewan. Who would have thunk of that?
right. It's really is kind of because she never went to trial. They charged her with the murder, but it didn't end up going to trial. They just did like a stay, and then they just never ended up bringing it to trial. So they had the possibility of bringing it to trial for the rest of her life. They never
Yeah.
took it back, but they never did end up actually putting her on trial for his murder.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Hmm. Do you find it? Well, yeah, we kind of talked about like it's the Saskatchewan archive is great, but yeah, they're very backlogged with requests. And
yeah.
but you said you have found things like the court hearings and the
The
transcripts and
coroner's
stuff.
inquest reports have been a godsend. The coroner, office of the coroner, have been really nice.
Oh, really?
They send me, well, yeah, because I mean, they're historical documents. Like they occasionally they're like, we have to look it over in case there's anything sensitive or, you know.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I mean, especially from like the 1930s, like it's not going to besmirch someone's name at this point
Oh,
to
yeah.
release the inquest. And so those have like transcripts of interviews with people and which is really nice. I like to try and get the words from the horse's mouth, because the other thing is with newspaper, well, and even with the coroner's inquest report, like I get emails all the time from people who are like, oh, I know these people, my family's from that area. By the way, you got so and so's name wrong and so and so's name wrong, and I'm like, yeah, the newspaper was not concerned about getting
Yeah.
people's names right or spelled correctly. So
Yeah.
I do a lot of updating when people email me to be like, hey, just so you know, I'm pretty sure you mean this person. That's not their name. This is their name. And I'm like, yeah, that you're right.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny how people, I was in a previous episode, I was talking with Kenton and Dylan because they do Canadian mysteries now. And that was,
Mm.
they said the biggest thing for them was whenever they touched anything that was true crime related, they'd get a whole bunch of emails. Well, you did this wrong. You did this wrong. So you find that too, that if you do have anything wrong about the facts, you're getting emails about it?
Yes, everyone who's emailed me has been so polite and very, very lovely. Every single person has just been like, hey, I'm so glad you wrote about this. This was my great grandmother, and no one in the family talked about what happened to her. And I get a
Oh,
lot of those where people reach out and they're like, thank you so much for writing about this. Like, this is something that nobody in our family spoke about. I never knew what happened. I always wanted to know what happened, that kind of thing.
oh, wow.
So, yeah. And like, so I get a ton of those. And then I get people who are just like, hey, by the way, I love your articles, but his name was actually Pete, like, and so I'm like, that's always welcome. Don't mind at all. That's no problem. I think I maybe got one person who was kind of a jerk, and it wasn't even a correction. They just didn't like how I ended some of my blog posts. They're like, don't end it like that. I don't like the way you write that. And I'm okay, then don't read them.
Yeah. You're always going to get one, at least one of those,
Taken,
right?
but unfortunately, yeah. So, but on the whole, like that's actually probably been one of the most surprising experiences. Is I have like a Facebook group, my historical Saskatchewan true crime Facebook group, which has like 3,000 people on it,
Oh, cool.
and they are so lovely. Everyone on there is kind of same with me. They want to be an armchair detective. We like to discuss theories. We want to be like, oh no, that guy did it for sure, or
Yeah.
and it's been so fun to have all those people tagging people like, oh, so and so, did you know this happened in your town? And it's been super fun.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fun. It's funny, yeah,
Yeah.
how true crime brings people together. It's such an odd thing, but I find that too. It's amazing how true crime does that.
Yeah, it's always like a specific kind of person. Like I've definitely ruined many a family dinner um with with just like, what this reminds me of.
Oh, gee. Yeah,
But
I
there's
can't.
certain
It
people
happened.
that their
I
eyes light up when you start to
Yeah.
say that. They're like, tell me more, all of it.
Yeah, I tend to do that too with my ghost stories. It's funny that people, as soon as you talk about, oh, I tell ghost stories or I collect ghost stories, and then everybody wants to tell you their ghost story. So I always
Yeah,
get to hear them, which is
that's
fun.
so true. If you mention ghosts, if anyone's ever had even like a just a whiff of an experience, so like, let me just tell you my tale.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. So this has been awesome. But I guess before we sign off, is there anything else you want to like talk about or future projects
Mm.
or anything kind of else you want to let everyone know about?
Well, I think just inviting people to visit my website, melaniecole.com. Anything of note is going to appear there. So that's where I post my true crime stories. No longer every week, unfortunately, but I try to get them up whenever I can. As well as if I have anything come up, I will be posting it there. You can also visit me on my Facebook group, the Historical Saskatchewan True Crime. If you are someone who loves true crime or Saskatchewan history, I think you'll find a really fun place there and a good group of people. Um, and as for any upcoming projects, I mean, I will always have upcoming projects.
That's the
I'm
way I
someone
am
who
too.
likes to be busy. Yeah. I have a mind that likes to whirl around and put a bunch of stuff in the air. So I am working on possibly like books in the future. Who knows? We'll see. But again, it's way too far in the future to say that anything's going to come of any of those ideas. But hopefully someday, one day, I will join you in the ranks of published. Um,
Yeah, that'd be exciting.
yeah. When does your book come out?
So mine comes out September is the plan, middle of September.
That's exciting. What is it called?
That one so far is called Coma. I don't know
Cool.
if we're going to change the title or not, but so far it's still called Coma.
Titles are the hardest part for me.
So hard. And I find
They're
out
so
most of
hard.
my titles are one word. It's just one word. That's all I've got. One word.
Well, in all of my true crime articles, I'm always like, you can't say the murder of so and so again. You need to be a little bit more creative.
Oh, yeah, I guess, hey?
But at the same time, I'm trying not to make it too flashy or I'm trying to get attention, but like accurate.
Yeah.
Because that's part of why I write about the historical true crime rather than anything current, is I just don't want to feel like I'm using victims of crime for entertainment.
Yeah.
I think that's something with the true crime genre that we all have to be really, really careful of, is remembering that there are victims and they have families, and some of those family members are still around, and they don't need to hear about it from us.
Yeah, that's
But
true. That's a very good point. Well, I
yeah,
imagine
so
it's probably easier doing historical too because the cases are either closed or long since cold.
yeah,
Yeah.
it makes it a little bit more satisfying because you're not waiting to
Yeah.
see um how things are going to pan out. But the ones that are unsolved, they will get you. There is no chance of it getting solved, which is
Yeah.
like that axe murder in Saskatchewan. Oh, I might have to do a very deep dive on that one because that was a yeah, that's tantalizing. That's the only problem is you'll never actually find your answers. Probably you might get a theory, but that's the closest
Yeah,
you're
that's
gonna
close
get.
you'll
So
get.
yeah,
That's
it's a
cool
good
though.
thing with ghost hunting, right? Like we can
Oh yeah.
theorize and we can enjoy and we can tell the stories and we can do our research, but can we prove it?
Well, that's always the hard part, right? Yeah. You can
Yeah.
make really good guesses, but whether or not that guess is real, who knows?
Mhm. What got you into your paranormal hunting?
Well, I always say it's because I grew up in a haunted house.
Oh, did
So,
you?
yeah. Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to tune into the podcast to hear that story.
Yeah, that will be that's my first episode is
Okay, I'll have to go back and listen.
yeah.
Oh, and I'll tell you too, for your listeners, I had already posted about the Scotty McLaughlin murder on my website, but I'm going to be posting an updated with all the details I uncovered with my deep dive. I'm going to kind of re-release it with way more information. So
Oh,
I'll
good.
try and release it kind of when this episode comes out. So if you're listening to this episode and you want to read it for yourself, then head over to my website, melaниecole.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. It's always fun to talk murder with people who are
Yeah.
also not terrified to talk about murder.
And if you do a deep dive into the potential Saskatchewan Lizzie Borden story, we'll have to maybe do another one.
Maybe a sequel in the
Yeah.
future.
Could be cool.
Sounds awesome. Anytime, really.
Yeah, awesome. And to our loyal listeners of ParaGhoul Paranormal Discoveries from the Dark, thank you for tuning in and embarking on this haunting journey with us. Remember, the unknown is always waiting to be explored, and we'll be back with more spine-chilling stories and deep dives into the paranormal next week. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to stay updated on all our latest episodes. If you want to support the podcast so we can go on more adventures, searching for paranormal experiences across Western Canada, make sure you check out our Patreon. As a patron, you get access to extra content that didn't make the episodes, behind the scenes information, and a live Q&A session with me once a month. Your support means the world to us as we continue unraveling the mysteries that lie beyond the veil. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes where we'll uncover more secrets, unravel more mysteries, and delve deeper into the shadows. Until then, remember to keep your flashlight handy and digital recorders ready. This is Katie Culpa signing off. Until next time, my ghouls.